I'm Janice Abel from ARC Advisor Group. I'm a principal consultant, and my background is I have a background in chemistry, chemical engineering, and I also have a degree in an MBA. So I kind of have a business and engineering background. And I spent 26 years in the process industries. So one of the things I'm focused on at ARC is enterprise manufacturing intelligence, which I'm finding fascinating. It's a growing field. The market is definitely alive and growing, and there's a lot of drivers for that, and we'll talk about that when I do my presentation. I also have a number of other speakers that I'll introduce as we get up. We have a really strong panelist session. I think that it's going to be a really exciting session today. So I guess one of the things, the session is on enterprise manufacturing intelligence, and the question comes up sometimes, well, is that manufacturing intelligence, or is that operational intelligence, or is that information-driven production? Well, yes, all of the above. Check, check, check. So that's really what this session's all about. So, and the purpose of my presentation is, I'm going to be a really short presentation. I want to get into the actual case histories where people have actually done this, because I think that's where really the value is. And the purpose of my presentation is just to give you a starting framework so we're all on the same page and we all kind of agree on definitions and some other things, and also some points for discussions. So with that, I'll begin. And start with what I was going to do. My agenda is talk about what EMI is, by a definition, what ARC has defined it as in terms of the scope of our studies as well as the strategy reports. What some of the drivers, strategies, and benefits are. Talk a little bit about some of the results from our worldwide study, and also some of the survey results. And the survey that I show you, I'll just show you, I think I only have one slide because I wanted to keep it short. But if anybody would like a copy of that, it came out last year, I'd be glad to mail you a PDF. And I'm also I redid that survey, and it's up right now, and I'm taking more data right now as we speak. So I wanted to update it and get some fresh data for this year. So see what people are doing, see what the changes are. So what is EMI, Well, it's really taking all of the information you've been collecting for years, not just in manufacturing, but in other places as well. But from a manufacturing perspective, it's all the sensors and the data and all of that information from the control and automation that you've been including. And it is a part of the CPM, which we call the Collaborative Production Management, which is really MES for a lot of people. And it's just getting the KPIs, the visualization, the dashboards, the reporting, the analytics, and integrating the data. And that's essentially, and it's also from other sources like your LIMS system, like your document management system, and even, yes, social media. So we can talk a little bit about that as I go through my presentation. So what does EMI include? Well, it includes the data integration and the aggregation. This is a very important part of EMI. It also includes the data contextualization and the modeling. It includes the data quality management. Is it good quality data? That's a really important part of EMI. It includes the analytics, and we're hearing the buzzword, real-time analytics. I've even seen real-time analytics defined as EMI. And also includes the data visualization and the reporting aspects. And reporting's not as new as the data visualization and the KPIs and the graphics that you see in the dashboards, the digital dashboards, but it includes all of that. So really, EMI is about all of this data you've been collecting, and as someone said to me, we're drowning in data but starving for information, and making it into intelligent information like the dashboards and the things. And one point of caution that I'm going to say about the dashboards is that one thing about the digital dashboards is you have to look at it from the human side as well as the technology side, and also look at and a lot of people, some people are actually doing that. They're looking at human factors when they put screens up and dashboards so they know how people respond. And that's really, really important today to look at. And collecting all this data, it's not just from one plant, it's from multiple plants today, and it's global. And there's some operators that are operating plants that have central control rooms that are operating multiple plants in one place. So it's really a multifaceted approach to data and information and making it intelligent. And these are the things we're all hearing about today. So what are the drivers? Well, some of the technologies that we've been seeing throughout the whole forum are drivers. EMI in the cloud. People are putting information in the cloud. Not their critical data, but more like historical and things that they don't maybe, if they could run their plant without, but and a lot of the reasons they're not putting it in the cloud, a lot of people are worried about security, privacy, intellectual property. However, people are using the cloud, and it is being used for data and information. It's a good way to store it. They're also using, we heard this term, it's a little buzzword, and I'll talk about this a little more in a minute, but the big data term. Do we have big data? Well, if you've been in a plant for the last 20 years collecting and storing all kinds of manufacturing data, it's big data. You know, we're there. And the other thing that's driving EMI is the ease of use and some of the technologies and tools and the visualization tools that are helping people make sense of the information. You know, we've had analytics. We've had some of these predictive analytics, neural networks. People have been talking about that throughout my whole career. We've had those. The thing is, you're using them to make intelligence out of the information. The predictive analytics, you're making predictions. And mobility, that's another enabler for EMI. You're able to access and get the information you need when you need it, the right information at the right time, and somebody called it right time information. So one of the things that did come up, which I thought was quite interesting, is you hear the business side keeps talking big data, and that's really probably promoting the big data term. But you're also seeing the manufacturing side of intelligence. And I actually borrowed the information from IBM. I made the slide myself up because I called it, okay, what's the elephant in the room? The elephant in the room is big data. All this information. And what is big data? I looked into the definition of this just so you know, and we can discuss this afterwards. And I think this would actually make an interesting discussion. What's business information? What's manufacturing information? Do you really need it in manufacturing? Well, the business people would like to think not the same information, but a lot of times you do need some of the information from the business side, and the business side needs the information from the manufacturing side. So what do? Well, big data is defined as large volume of data, and some people are saying we've got now 8 zettabytes, and a lot of that's in the last 2 years, but a lot of it's from social media. But then there's also, what's the value of that volume of data? Well, for us, maybe not so much, but there is some value. There's some in the people are using the weather trading. I've seen people in plants using looking at the weather. They're using day traders. They're looking at the price of steel, the price of the oil. So they're using that in their manufacturing processes. So also the variety. You're also seeing a variety of sources of data, and that's part of big data, is integrating it from a variety of sources. And that's EMI to me, is integrating from a variety of sources. And then they also say it's called 3 V's, the big data. They say that's how you define it. The velocity. How fast is it? How speedy is it? Well, in manufacturing, how many people do you think that real-time analytics is new? So there you go. Real-time analytics is not new. I mean, people have been talking about milliseconds and seconds and getting that information really fast. In the business world, I asked somebody, well, what is real-time analytics? He goes, oh, it's when you order something and they send you back an email. You can tell I come from the engineering side. They send you back an email and says, your order came through, and then they do the analytics and they say, other people that bought this also bought this. So there's the analytics. But anyway, but one of the things that is true, that I believe that some of the business leaders don't really have the information they need. And that includes the plant managers as well. And 1 and 2 said that they don't access or do they don't have the access to the information to do their jobs correctly, or they spend a lot of time looking for that information is one thing I heard. Or they know the information is there, but they can't find it. So one of the things was that they felt you could do a better job of capturing that information. And that's one of the things that EMI is an enabler. It helps make intelligence out of that information. So really, what's driving EMI? Is it the social media? Is it all of this data that we've been gathering from sensors, from all the little devices and everything? And that's the question, I guess, is now that we've established what EMI is, how do you make intelligence out of it? And that's really what EMI is all about. I talked to one plant manager. He said to me, I've been collecting data for years. He said this exactly to me. We have all this data, but we just don't know what to do with it. And so EMI helps to solve that problem. And one of the other things is they talk about structured data, unstructured data, and all the different sources of data. and all the explosion of data. And some of it's from sensors, and some of it is, the tweets and all the LinkedIn information and the videos and the photos and all the other things that you're seeing today. But one of the things that we said last year was big data by itself is virtually useless unless something is done that delivers value to the organization. And that's really what EMI is all about. So some of the strategies, and this is just a few, there was a whole bunch of others, I just picked a couple. And one that I particularly liked was the EMI culture. When we were doing our study, these are the things that came out. And one of the things that people are using, one of the things about using EMI is that if you don't have an EMI culture, you need to start that. You need to start using analytics to make your decisions. You don't just want to make these ad hoc decisions. And that's really what EMI is about. So you need that EMI culture. And I think culture is important in creating that culture. And also, the other part of EMI that's driving it is you're having better interoperability. And EMI is an enabler for interoperability. And you'll see that with some of the presentations that you see today that are going to follow me. And also, being able to tie the measurements to performance, being able to get an ROI from using EMI, and being able to show that. And that's something that some people are actually building into their EMI system so that they can get that information, and it's already integrated into the system. So it makes it much easier for the end user to be able to make a decision based on performance. So we also have this survey going on, the EMI survey. So if you want to take it, I put the link in my presentation, which hopefully everybody in this room will take after this great presentation. So one of the things, and this is just really quickly, the survey, there was a lot of food and beverage people that took the survey, followed by the chemical, and then there was oil and gas people that took it. And one of the things, and I'm just showing you the one slide, there's a whole bunch of others that I showed last year, but this year I decided I'd just keep it real crisp because I wanted the speakers to speak. But the number one thing, as you can imagine, would be the integration of data. That's always been an issue, and I think a couple people mentioned that here, integrating to all the different sources of data, and also the cost to implement and deploy. And as that starts to come down, I think more and more people are going to be implementing enterprise manufacturing intelligence. So what I like to do is end with a little story, and it has to do with the KPIs. But there was a lady in Massachusetts. How many people are from Massachusetts? Anybody? Okay. Well, if you were in Massachusetts, you would have heard about this. But she, they had actually a dashboard, and she performed over 11,000 tests in the state test lab for criminals. Okay, and she was double the next most productive chemist lab, and she was 9 times over the other chemists. Now, they didn't do predictive analytics. From what I could see, it looks like they were just monitoring numbers, is all they were monitoring. But because she was doing so well, they thought this, and this was the kind of person that was a model employee. She'd work through lunches. They thought, wow, she's a great worker. And this is my warning, is you need to look at the multifaceted approach, and you need to be aware of how your dashboards are perceived and how people, attribute their skill sets to them. So you need to know you have to drive the right factors. So you can see that's the chart. I saw this in the paper, so I just thought I'd show it because to me it was, it's an interesting graphic. It's not exactly what, you see in the plant or anything like that, but that's why I used it. But I noticed that, you can see the bottom line, which is the very bottom one, is the mean for the average chemist, okay? And then the line at the top is her actually production. So when she first came in the lab between 2004 and 2005, she did 11,000 samples. The next nearest person did 6,000, and then the person below that did almost 3,000. I mean, that's the average was 3,000. Okay, so her boss thought she was great. I mean, they didn't look at that. But the way that she got caught was the other employees started looking at her as the model. Okay? It was the coworkers figured it out. They were watching her. She didn't do mass balance checks. Then they started watching her some more, and they realized she's not checking all the samples. So she didn't check all the samples. And they figured it out somehow, and they reported her. And when she got reported, I think as many as 500 different criminals may go free because of this. And that was awarded as best behavior. And she did it, she's not like a hardcore criminal. She did it because she wanted to please. you know, and it's really sad, actually, in a way. So anyway, that's my message, is to make sure that when you do have your KPIs and your dashboards, that you're driving the right kind of behavior, and that maybe if we had real-time analytics, they would have been able to catch that, and that could have, predictive analytics might have even caught that behavior and said, you know, hey, you got to look at this, and flagged it out. So I guess, is EMI making you smarter? And I'd like to hear from people afterwards when we have our panel. And basically it is. It's getting the right information at the right time in the right place.